The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to the Ring and All of the Sports. My name is Leo Connors, and I'm your host. And tonight I got a very special guest, Maverick Wild. Mav, thanks for coming on the show.
Good to see you.
You too. We're gonna change it up a little bit, guys. I want to try a new thing. We got some fan questions before we get into Mav's career. We're gonna just get through those. First one, Mav, is from Jeff Wood. He wants to know: would you ever bring back front row wrestling? And then he said, even though you can't wrestle anymore, is that true? You can't?
Me being able to wrestle at this point is new. I've had 5 knee operations. I've had a back operation. I've had a shoulder operation. Yeah. The left knee needs to be replaced. You may be able to hear.
Oh, wow.
It's a knee brace that goes from down to my ankle, up my thigh.
Wow.
So the knee needs to be replaced, and I probably need back surgery again. So no, that's all done. As far as bringing back what I was doing, front row wrestling was something I promoted mainly New Hampshire, but some in Mass and some in Vermont as well. For me, that was a kind of a project that I wanted to do wrestling in very small towns, and I like that, but I don't think it's a financially viable kind of thing anymore. So unfortunately, the answer is probably no.
All right. Well, thanks for the question, Jeff. Next, we're gonna one of my favorite guests I had on the show, Joey Eastman. Actually, it was Sydney. Who is the worst guy you ever booked, and why is it Joey Eastman?
It's not Joey Eastman. Joey Eastman was a fan from way back when I started back in New Bedford. He was a big fan of the wrestling down there. And then I don't know what happened in his life. He ended up moving to Chicago, and he got into wrestling. He got involved in wrestling in Chicago, and he wanted to move back this way. And so I just started getting these emails from this guy, Joey Eastman. I was never one of these big guys that just watched and pursued every little independent professional wrestling organization in the country. So I was like, I don't know who this is. So I took him on, and I said, you know what? If he's bad, I'm going to take him out to the ring with me. And if he's bad, I'll just get rid of him. Right. And he was by far not the worst person I ever booked. Worst person? I don't know. If I booked them, I didn't think they were bad. I always thought they had some kind of use. That sounds political. Yeah,
that's all right.
A little, but no, I liked everybody. I booked everybody I booked for a reason. Some I was training at my own gym. Right. So.
Well, Derek Dukes, if you're watching, sorry, buddy, because he likes everyone to shit on people. But he does. All right. Next up, we got from Dave Fournier. Please tell us your feelings on the Skunk.
Oh. Well, hey, he's going to like this one because
I know.
There are very few people that I will crap all over.
Right.
Him I will. Oh, my God, I hated him. Don't even remember his real name at this point.
I forget.
He was a guy, it is. We don't need to mention Chris's last name. He showed up at Jeff Koster's old gym in Nashua.
Yep, I know what that was.
And he wanted to be trained. And Chris, I don't care if you're out there. Jeff had these things he called, some people that could pay him as they went along. Yep. And then he also had people, he just looked at them and go, cash deal.
Right.
So, Chris paid a lot of money to learn how to wrestle. And despite our best efforts, he never did. Right. And I used to help run Jeff's gym occasionally, and he was just, he was just such a piece of crap. Right? He really was.
Not a very nice human being. That's what I've heard.
I didn't really care about losing matches or winning matches, but I was Jeff's champion.
Right.
And he took me aside and said, he's going to pay me like $500 if you lose a match to him. And I said, no. I'll split it with you. No.
Right.
He was a disgusting human being.
Yeah.
He infamously got thrown off of public television in I think it was Marlboro.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think he blew his nose, or
he did a lot
blew
of
his nose with a Brazilian flag. There's a heavy Brazilian population out that way. And he got thrown off, and he threatened a mayor one time, and and they want to throw him in jail, which was probably a good place for him. Right. And the best story I actually have of him is just he was the most socially awkward person. Unbelievably so, like in a bad way. I like socially awkward people that I find are funny. I didn't find him funny.
Right.
He was actually a very intelligent person. He was a computer guy.
Right.
So I think he gets sent to Colorado. His company sent him over there. They had set up some brand new computer system, and I guess they had spent a lot of money. So they sent him out there because they couldn't get it up and running. And he went out there and he flicked one switch. He looked at the guy who just spent all the money and said, "Don't you feel stupid now?"
Wow.
He was fired.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I believe.
Right?
So that sums him up pretty well.
Right, yeah, definitely. I've actually heard some funny stories about him, too, but this is your show, right? This is your episode, not mine. Dennis St. Laurent wants to know, I know this answer, but who did you wrestle that went on to the WWE or TNA even from around here?
Oh, boy. Well, knowing that, the bulk of everything I did probably stopped around 2005, 2006, if my memory serves right. And then I got back into it a little bit of a later date.
Right.
But, started off, back in 1989, I started off, and Scott Taylor, Scotty Too Hotty, I probably wrestled him a good 12 to 20 times over the years, just because we were in the same... We were running in the same areas.
Yep.
Who else? Oh, there's been a lot of them. I mean, Antonio Thomas, who really didn't spend a lot of time there.
But he was good.
But he was.
Still good. He's still good.
Kurt, the guy who does the Fandango thing.
Oh, yeah, Johnny Curtis.
Yes.
Yep.
Another, his name, I think he was Palmer.
Yeah, Brian Black.
Brian Black.
Carson Palmer's the Brian Palmer or something like that.
Yes.
No, Palmer Cannon. That's
it.
what it was.
Okay.
Palmer Cannon.
He had a few matches with him. There's probably a good 20, 30 of them, and I'm just not remembering it all.
That's all right.
Unfortunately, one of the things about wrestling is, you land on the back of your brain pan a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes the memories get fuzzy.
Right.
I mean, there's been a lot of them. Kenny Dykstra.
Yep.
Now they're starting to come.
Squad.
Yep. But that was really never my thing. I'm glad these people went on. I'm glad glad they went on to make money. Todd Smith. What's he doing?
Yeah, he's doing amazing right now.
And Bob Evans to a more limited.
Yep.
His Ring of Honor.
Yeah, Bob's a hell of a talent.
Yeah.
You wrestled him a lot.
Yes.
I know that.
Oh yeah.
Even all the way back to his centerfold Bob days.
Centerfold Bob Evans. It was boxing Bob Evans.
Yep. But he has gone on to do really good things. He's helps train the guys for Ring of Honor, especially if they need a little polishing.
He's kind of found that I call it the side alley of professional wrestling, and that's not an insult.
Right.
He's kind of finding that avenue you can take and make a living at it.
Right.
And
without being in the WWE.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not making $200,000-$300,000 a year at it,
right.
but he's doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always enjoyed watching Bob wrestle. It's funny because I don't know if you knew, but I used to cater for Ring of Honor when they first came around from 2002 to 2004. And I remember seeing Bob at one of the shows. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't working for him yet. No. This was back, I want to say
Bob,
it was like
Bob knocked on a lot of doors for a lot of years.
Yeah. But he got in.
Yes.
So that's really good.
Yeah, he was persistent.
Right. Next question is from Nathan Fuller, and he wants to know what it was like wrestling for Jeff Koster in the AWA.
I love Jeff. Yep. I always have. Jeff is he's the most intelligent, off the cuff man I've ever met. Plain and simple. Not everybody feels that way about him.
Right.
He could be temperamental. And he could rub people the wrong way. He rubbed me the wrong way sometimes.
Right.
But through thick and thin, I compare Jeff to like that that uncle that doesn't like any of the other relatives but
Right.
shows up at Thanksgiving
Like
and
Uncle
it's just gonna crap all over everybody,
Yep.
or just be loud, obnoxious, and all the kids are just gonna line up.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
This is gonna be awesome,
Right? Nah, Jeff's the man. That's funny. I got a great question here from my buddy Taylor Norseman. I talked to you about it off air, but you've held many titles in your time.
Yeah.
Which title felt like the biggest accomplishment, and which did you feel most proud of?
It's tough to say.
Right.
I mean,
'Cause you did hold a lot of.
well, I did a
You
whole lot, and but I've always told people that wrestling, in local towns and on smaller shows, it's all wherever you go. It's kind of a series of lateral movements,
Right.
so to speak. I mean, nobody's so much bigger than the other place that you're gonna value, this place or that place.
Yeah.
I did things that I was, anytime I was in the mix with Jeff, I always, that was a big thing because Jeff didn't extend a lot of trust
Right.
to, to a lot of the guys. He really did. He kept things pretty insular.
Close,
he kept
yeah.
it pretty close. It was close to him and another guy, Rip Morrison.
Oh, I know Rip. Yep.
And Sonny initially, and I was kind of an outsider when I
Okay.
came in because I'm not from around the area.
Right. See, I didn't know that. I always thought
Yep.
you were tight with them from the beginning. I did not know that.
No, and I was kind of like an outsider that he
Okay.
kind of gained a lot of trust for. So I would say, I can't call out any specific, but whenever he put me in a position to be kind of, you're the guy we're going with for now.
Right.
I was always proudest of that because he was so off the wall and he was so off the cut. You had to be so adaptable,
Yeah.
and you just had to. I mean, one night you're in a cage, beating each other bloody, and then the next night, you had to dress up like from Dorothy from Wizard of Oz.
Stick your head, get your head stuck in the toilet bowl to come out with
toilet
the
bowl
turd.
match. Yeah. Oh yeah, you got to do that too.
That's funny.
So that was him. That was a big thing. And then I started moving more into the the metro areas
Yeah.
and stuff.
Chaotic and all that.
I was really proud to I was really proud to be Sheldon Goldberg
Yep.
and ACW's champion.
Right.
That was like the first time somebody really put faith in me just solely on my ability, my physical abilities, and
Yep.
that was a big thing to me. It was a hell of a compliment,
Right.
And then when I moved on to chaotic, it was chaotic. I was almost used in a position. I always thought that I was to wrestle with their students and
Help them out.
give them kind of how the way the match is supposed to be laid out.
Right.
And I was very happy to do that.
Yeah.
And there was the EWA championship. That was
You were part owner of that company.
I
for a
was.
little bit. Yep.
I was
You
part
and,
owner of that. I was
Dr.
part.
Harrison.
I was part owner. I've been involved in basically 3 promotions.
Oh, really?
Financially, my own Front Row Wrestling, Dr. Harris's EWA,
Yep.
and those were the 2 long-term ones. And
Right.
for a little while, I was actually involved in Liberty State Wrestling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Todd.
Yes.
Okay. Nice. Ryan Drew wants to have you tell the story of Oxbake.
Good Lord. Ryan Drew, when you watch this, I hate you for posing this question.
Hopefully he's watching it now because this does go live on
Okay.
YouTube.
So I can't completely relate the story as best I can because usually involves getting up
Right.
and walking around and stomping around. Okay, but years ago we were wrestling at St. Stan's Hall
Yep.
right here in Nashua, and Ox Baker, for people who don't know, was he had been around forever. He was this big, scary-looking guy, big handlebar mustache. And at that point, I know I'm about 290 at this point in my life, but at that point, when I was still wrestling at that point, I was probably about $180 soaking wet. So we did some 6-man tag team match, and there were some guys from New Bedford up, and they were involved in a match. And the match was the match was fine, but
Yep.
that wasn't the remarkable thing. So Ox Baker used to have a big booming voice like this.
Oh, yeah.
And just big old face of hair and
Yeah,
stuff.
yep.
So anyways, we get done the match, and St. Stan's used to have a curtain on a
Yes,
stage.
on
That's
top
where
of
we
the
used to
stage.
dress.
Yep.
So I came through the curtain, and Ox used to carry a whip with him.
Yep.
Okay? So I come in, and he's ranting and raving about something, showing off, and he's in his loud, obnoxious voice,
Right.
And he goes, "And just like this," and he takes the whip and he plows it into my chest. So I look at him. I said, "I'm going to edit myself as best I can. What the F was that for?"
Right.
And he didn't back down. He didn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was just screwing around."
Right.
Which is what most people would do. And
Right.
That's what I would do. I'm kind of over the top myself. But so he goes, "Oh, you were the smallest guy I saw walk through the curtain. I figure I could abuse you." Oh, really?
Right.
So now I look at him and goes, "Yeah, you're right. I'm just a small guy. I'm a small wrestler. I can't really defend myself physically against somebody your size." Now, bearing in mind that I'm kind of a jerk here because Ox Baker is probably about 67 at this point.
Right.
But
But
I'm
he still hit you
I'm
with a
not,
whip.
I'm not going to put up with that from anybody.
Right.
I said, "You're right. I can't defend myself against somebody your size." I said, "That's why I have a knife collection. I have it right in my trunk. Why don't I go and get it right now and show it to you?"
Wow.
Then, guys who were there will back this up.
Right.
I just started pacing back and forth. And every once in a while, I'd stop. I'd look at him and go, "Stab you." "Kill you."
Wow.
"Gut you, roll you over the carpet, and throw you down on the railroad tracks." So about an hour later, when I had calmed down, he came to me and apologized profusely. "Oh, sorry, buddy." So yeah, that was. I didn't really know Ox that good, but
Right.
don't hit me with a whip.
Right, exactly. He caused riots and everything back in the 60s
He was a
and
heat
70s.
machine. He was an absolute heat machine.
He didn't even need to, like you said, he was so scary looking.
Ox Baker was known for going into a territory, and he would go in for 6 to 10 weeks.
Right.
And he was actually, once you talk to him, he would admit, he said,
Right.
"My wrestling ability was not great. I could do a hell of a promo, and I was big and scary. They'd give me people to chew up, and then I'd be on my way out of the territory after the top guy beat me." So,
Wow.
and he made a living doing that for years
Yeah,
and
he
years
did.
and years.
He did. He was like, again, he was a scary looking dude.
Yep. But don't hit me with a whip.
Oh, absolutely. Joe, obviously, Joe Bruin.
Yep.
He wants to know, what was the atmosphere like when you were in WCW?
I have often told people that I really never set out for a wrestling career. I always looked at the thing like a big adventure.
Right.
So every once in a while I would go, maybe I can make a run at this thing. So the opportunity, Scott Dickinson and I believe Tony Rumble
Yep.
had made the opportunity for me to go down and, do a match.
Florida, right?
Yeah. It was in Pensacola.
I think that's what you said on another podcast I listened to.
Yeah. So anyways, I went down. I was to wrestle Kevin Sullivan and his valet,
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline. All right. And, well, first off, they told me what I was doing. And I guess they had done it. They used to do that worldwide taping.
Yes.
And they had brought Doc Dean from England and Robbie Brookside in from England.
Okay.
So they had put that on tape, in the can, as they say. It hadn't been broadcast yet. So I was going out to go do this thing live. He beats me up, and
Yep.
and then he tosses me out of the ring, and then she beat me up, and then it went back and forth like that. So, again, Jeff Koster, a good friend of mine. I got on the phone with him. This is back in the days, no cell phone.
Right.
Or if you had a cell phone, you were rich.
Yeah.
I got on a payphone. I call up Jeff. I go, "I'm coming home." He's like, "What? You can't come home. They flew you out there." "I'm getting on a plane and I'm leaving." "What?" They want me to get beat up by the girl." I said, "Oh, Jesus, you can't leave." "No, really, I think I can leave. I think I can get on the plane. I got a credit card if they cancel my ticket, So, they were all, I guess they had a booking staff down there, and I got called into this room, and I got called into a room with Arn Anderson and Terry Taylor and a few other people, and Kevin Sullivan was there, and, this thing wasn't complicated, I knew what I was going to do, So Arn Anderson goes, get that kind of Georgia drawl. He comes up to me. I'm not very good at impressions,
Okay.
but I know this sucks, kid, but you got to do it. I said, listen, I must have come across like the biggest jerk in the world. Because I just looked at it. Listen, I've been doing this a while. I'm telling Arn Anderson I've been doing this for a while. I've been at this for a while. Okay, let me get this straight. I go in the ring and he beats the crap out of me. Yeah, and then he throws me out of the ring and she beats the crap out of me. Yeah, then she throws me back in the ring and he beats the crap out of me. And then he throws me back at her and I get the crap beat out of me. And then she throws me back in and he beats the crap out of me and pins me. That's it, right? He looks at me like, yeah? The hell are we talking about?
Right.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
So I went and did it, but it was the thing that really struck me about it was that I had done in the early '90s. I had done WWF at the time,
Yes.
WWE
I've
stuff
seen a lot of those matches.
for a little over a year. Probably every 3 or 4 weeks I was out on the road doing that, and they were all so organized, and they had this giant dry erase board, and they used to write in the matches, and if things were going over, they just go over and erase a match. They had everything so organized,
Very professional.
And WCW, from the one time I was there, was the most disorganized cluster I ever walked into. Like 5 minutes before live TV, nobody knows who's going on first.
Bobby Heenan said that. I saw an interview the one time saying that he'd get the thing halfway through the show.
I believe the night I did it, Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit wrestled the first match, and I think you saw that combination of him and Eddie Guerrero and guys. I honestly think you saw that match a lot because they didn't know who was on first a lot, and they just get out there.
Right, yeah. Because they knew they'd put on good matches.
Well, it's fine if you run on the Hudson Lions Club, but with Jeff putting his foot on your rear end, get out there. But no, it's a lot different when you're on live TV. It's a multi-million-dollar product. It was a weird atmosphere.
Right.
And I don't know. They called me to go back a few times. I was like, no thanks. I'm all set.
Right. Joe's got another question here. Who are some of your favorites to work in the New England area? I'm sure you probably have a lot of them. But if you want to just pick a couple.
Bob Evans was always good to work with. Bob Evans could create a lot of personality conflicts with people, both in and out of the ring.
Right.
Bob would come right out and tell you that. He was not a people person sometimes. For years there wasn't a bridge he would cross that he didn't burn on the way over it. Alex Arian was incredible. I mean, just a local guy that's just really, really
Actually,
good.
you wrestled at the ROH in
The Ring of Honor show.
I was actually at that show.
Who else? I don't want to leave anybody out. There's so many.
Right.
I mean, Dr. Heresy. I always loved wrestling Dr. Heresy. It was a little different. Wasn't as athletic of a style as I became kind of used to.
He had a great gimmick. That was a great gimmick.
Jeff Koster, Lobster Man. I loved wrestling him not only because he was so goofy and off the wall, but he could do a very good straight wrestling match too. Because what people fail to recognize about him was he spent, back when this was a territory-based business, he spent 7-8 years working out of the Vancouver area.
Yeah.
So
I watch a lot of that still on YouTube. I really do.
And it was a hard territory. Right. It was really remote. And he was pretty much at the top of that place the entire time there. Yeah, so
there's no doubt.
That's why when people look at him and go, that short, fat guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
All they think about is lobster.
I was like, that short, fat guy went on and had a better career than most people will ever think about having. Yeah. He really did. Yeah. And then, so I loved wrestling him. I mean, my favorite guy to wrestle ever was Rip Morrison. Rip Morrison, because sometimes you just find somebody that dovetails you perfectly.
Right.
And when I wrestled Rip Morrison, it looked like the high school jock, me at the time, believe it or not, was beaten up, and Rip would, again, he used to call himself this, was beating up the short, fat kid, And the short, fat kid would start getting his comeuppance. Right. And he had so much energy, and he was so strong, too. Yeah. He was as strong as a bull. He was, he had insane man strength. He really did. He was incredible, and I did my best matches of my life with him.
Nice. I remember one time, I think he wrestled you. That time he had so much blood. I think it was against you, too, at St. Stan's. And I mean, never in my life have I seen anything live with that much blood. Was that against you?
Yes.
Oh,
and I can
crazy.
probably tell you it's a match I've been looking for anybody that had on tape forever.
Right.
We did a street fight. He had actually... Rip had stopped wrestling. He had a lot of neck injuries.
Yeah.
You know, he had broken the tip of his vertebrae off in his neck.
Wow.
So, you know, he had a ruptured disc in his neck. And so he was going around helping run the gym. And I felt some of the guys that Jeff was using and were training were being kind of disrespectful to him. You know, they would just kind of treat him like dirt. And I was like, you guys were never this good. I mean, you know, some of them eventually became that good.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I thought they were very disrespectful to him. And I said, you know what? I'm going to set something up where I'm beating somebody up in the ring. And he used to do security at the door at St. Stan's. And I'm going to have him, in his capacity as a security guard, come in and pull me off of him. And then I'm going to attack him. And that's going to set up for 3 weeks later.
Right.
You know? So we set up to do a street fight. And I remember the match well. That's the best match I've ever had in my life.
Oh, wow.
So it was really good. It was really gory.
Yeah, it was.
So
Blood
here's
everywhere.
a little... So he was covered in blood, and he threw him out of the ring, and I popped him in the head once, and he staggered. He went to another side of the ring. I said, well, I'll give these people a show on this side, too.
Right.
And I reached over the top of his head to grab his nose to turn him around, and I know I'm blocking my face. That's terrible camera work right there. Sorry. Turn him around, but instead of getting on his nose, my hand slipped. He had so much blood, and my hand went inside of the cut in his head, and I just went. Not too much grosses me out. I just went.
Yeah.
Oh,
That match was nuts.
yeah. I unfortunately probably some of those injuries I probably contributed to over the years. Sorry, Rip.
One more question from Joe. How do you compare wrestling today to wrestling when you wrestled regularly? Because I know it's changed a lot.
It has, even just the last 10 years. I was actually thinking of this, and we didn't even talk about doing this question. Remember back in the 40s and 50s and even the 60s, the movie companies, MGM and stuff, you would hear the term MGM players.
Right.
These would be actors and actresses they had under contract that they would cast in their movies, and they wouldn't cast outside of their pool of actors and actresses. It was a lot more like that. Okay.
When you were wrestling.
Meaning you found yourself a base promoter to work for, and it wasn't that you didn't go outside of that one promoter. It's just you had one guy that was your main guy.
Yep.
You know, you found a guy that ran a lot of shows that you preferred to wrestle for, and I did that. You know, I did that for years. Now it's become more of a thing with, you know, how widespread, you know, being able to promote yourself on the internet has become, and some of these companies are very good at marketing themselves to, you know, to a crowd where they're consistently drawing between 200 and 600 people. Right. You know, which is really good. And then the guys, because the vehicle is there, it can be much better of a self-promoter. Yep. But I think you can't really chain yourself down as much as you used to be able to. You know, the closest thing to being able to chain yourself down would be like Chaotic, and Chaotic may run 30 to 35 shows a year in this area, which is a lot.
Yeah, it is.
But,
and they have a great fan base too.
But I remember my main guy. That was one of the reasons I did so much with Jeff Koster, the Lobster Man, because he would run. There was one year he ran. It was about 60 shows, and then he did like 50 or just under it the next, and then he would let the guys out. Like he would make contact with other promoters and you know, use my guys, and you know, so it was kind of a little. It's a lot different now. It really is. The guys. I don't want to use the word prostitute because that's not what it is.
Right.
It's you're actually able to now a lot better go out and sell yourself, and merchandise yourself on a very small level. And you may not be buying your house with it and stocking your 401k with that money. you can make, a decent amount of side cash, or even, if you're willing to live lean and, live the dream, you can, you can eke out a living at it,
Right.
without even hitting the big time, if you're good and if you work hard enough. You gotta have hustle, as the kids say these days.
Right. But you're right, though, because, like, the social memedia, it's incredible how much you can just sell yourself.
And that was something I had problems
Really?
relating to, the last years I was involved in it, because I always just looked at this, why don't you just go out there and have your match and shut up?
Right, right.
But it's not, I didn't quite understand how it was changing. And I have a better understanding of that now.
Right. Last question from Brian Privatera. Wants to know if you have any stories about Flex Lavender.
I don't, Brian Privatera is a pain in the ass. I don't have I worked with Flex Lavender one time.
It's
went
on
down,
video, too.
It was in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, I believe it was. I went down for the Savoldis, the old ICW at the time. That would have been right around 1990, 91 maybe, but probably more like 1990. I just, and the Savoldis were looking for bodies to do their TV. And so, of course, they tried to get me down. This is your tryout match. You don't get paid for a tryout match. I get paid for a tryout match.
Good.
Good. But, I mean, I don't know. I've never talked to the guy before or since. I mean, we barely talked at all because the locker rooms were separated.
Okay.
They did that kind of old style.
Right.
So, there was one little intercom system where you could press a button and talk to the guy if you really wanted to, but you weren't going to communicate too much.
So you pretty much just called it in the ring.
Yeah, get out there, do whatever, and go home.
All right. See that, Brian? We asked you a question. Before we just go into your career real quick, I know you told me a while ago you wanted to talk about Leon Traynham?
Yes, I called my own question out.
Yes.
Leon Traynham was I was about a little over a year ago, was helping out with Kevin Landry's students out of it's actually Holyoke. It's a Springfield, Mass area. And he had a young guy named Leon down there. Leon, I believe, had some sort of concussion-related injury at one point. So I think he really wanted him to wrestle, but what he could do was manage, and so because of his concussion problem, and I believe it was concussion related. I know he had seizure problems, so I would try and go down and we'd try and figure out, all right, what contact can you take, what can't you take, what can you do, what can you, and he would. He was the type of guy that would ask you thousands of questions. And you'd be sitting there and, you'd actually be getting pissed off at him when he's asking them all.
Yeah.
But you'd ride home after and start absorbing it after a while. He's a really nice guy. And, he just
really wanted to learn.
Really wants to learn. And unfortunately, Leon left us about a month ago.
Yeah.
He had a seizure, and they found him too late to resuscitate him, and it was
at home?
I believe it was at home. Yes, he had a little daughter, and that's very sad.
Definitely.
Leon was only in his he may not have even been 30, so it was very sad to me, and I liked him a lot, and I know a lot of the students. If Kevin Landry's guys are watching this, I love Leon too, and I'm going to miss him.
Rest in peace, Leon. Mav, we got about a little over 20 minutes. Let's get into your career. I'm going to skip a few questions about where you grew up and all that. Can you tell us about Brian Walsh trained you? Was there anybody else that we might know that was in the same class?
No, because wrestling used to be a very closed business when I first started into it.
Right.
So it was actually hard to get into a wrestling. There weren't even many wrestling schools. You had Larry Sharp's, and there were a couple other ones.
Killer.
And there was Walter's. So Walter Killer Kowalski's was the local one.
Right.
And I tried to get into Killer Kowalski's school. And at that point in his life, and in that point in wrestling, he could afford to be a little more selective. So imagine my shock when I would send my pictures of myself in my cellar in my red jogging shorts with the tiger stripe red bikini underwear over the top of them, holding a kitten. Dead serious. This is true. I have the picture at home someplace. Why he wouldn't take a student like me.
Right.
So Walter Kowalski used to sell shows. Sold shows are almost a thing of the past.
Never see them anymore.
But
really.
he used to sell them yearly to the Police Athletic League in Gardner, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I went to the matches one time. I said, I know he's running these things. I'm going to get a hold of somebody.
Right.
So the guy I happened to bump into was a guy named Stephen Driscoll. Okay. And Stephen Driscoll and Brian Walsh lived together.
Yeah.
And what he told me, what Stephen told me was, sometimes, Walter is very selective. He said, but if you want to take a chance and you want me and Brian to train you, then you can come in and do that. Okay. So I trained with Brian Walsh and Steve on the side. I trained without benefit of a ring.
Right.
I trained on crash mats in a cellar. There were a couple other guys that were training at the time, none of whom you would have heard of. Not that too many people have heard of me either, but I'm not really trying to insult them. It's just none that if they had 2 matches beyond that, I'd be shocked.
Right.
But initially, me and Steve Driscoll really didn't see eye to eye. He was trying to run some shows that I, at the time, would have found questionable. Sorry, Steve. It was a different age, and I have become a little more enlightened in my later years. But so, he wanted me to work on these shows, and I said, I don't know. He said, well, I really like my guys to be, really in shape, and you put on a couple of pounds since you got here. I said, oh, okay. And I went home and I ate as much as I could for the next 3 weeks.
Right.
And then he really. I really didn't want me on the shows. It was the most politically expedient way of getting out of them.
Right.
Sorry, Steve. If you've never heard this before,
Wow.
And so then I got an address to Joe Eugenio out of New Bedford.
Right.
Who ran
Yankee Pro? Was he running Yankee Pro, was it?
It was before that.
Oh, okay.
He was ran as Whaling City Wrestling years ago.
Right.
And then it became New England Pro Wrestling, or the alphabet soup minutia.
Yeah.
So we'll just call it for like 5 years. I worked in and around like the New Bedford area, and would go out and get booked in other places.
Yep.
So that's where I got my start at.
Okay. So is that where you had your first match? Because that was the next question.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
I had it at a festival. They just started running again. They used to run at Buttonwood Park.
Okay.
It was a fair date, which those are, if you sell a show anymore, that's usually what they are.
Right.
So I wrestled at Buttonwood Park, and I wrestled a guy that is probably most people have never heard of it, by the name of Brian the Scorpion Shiloh, and it was just it was a good match. I was nervous. I did stupid things like everybody does in their first match.
Right.
But it was good. I didn't embarrass myself too badly, which is, pretty much, a motif that I kept up for about 30 years.
Right. Now, what company gave you your first break that you feel was your first break? Maybe putting you on top or whatever.
Oh, the first one would have to be Joe Eugenio's mixture down there at that point, because those also led to Phil Apollo coming in, and he was in charge of booking the guys, and that led to me doing WWF, WWE TV. So that would be, and if anything I ever had was called a break, that would really be, the first.
Right. All right. So you pretty much started there. Let's go through like some of the companies. Where did you go next? Do you remember?
I left there, and I was looking for kind of it was rather kind of a natural attrition. I would take, when my kids were born, I would actually try and take like 3 months off from wrestling on either side of the birth.
Yep.
So when my son was born, and of course I had said I'm not going to be here for a little while, and I just kind of didn't fall out of favor or anything. It was just, I'd been down there a long time anyways.
Yep.
So I was kind of looking for something new to do.
Right.
So I just happened to be driving through town here in Nashua, and we talked about Boxing Bob. And I happened to drive by this telephone pole, and I saw this poster. I said, Boxing Bob versus Johnny Royal. What the hell is that? You know?
Yep.
And, you know, that, as it would turn out, that would be one of Jeff Koster's tame things.
Right.
You know, I mean, we after years of wrestling in 3D
Yep.
and toilet bowl matches and loser each dog food matches and Kevin Nashua
Yep. All those
and
matches,
Scott
right?
Hollis and
Scott Hollis
and Bart Hart. Hey, Pinky, we all remember Bart Hart.
Yep. That was Pinky, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was great.
Right.
That was the greatest thing I ever saw. That was the greatest thing I ever saw, just because Jason Sanderson, the Wolfman,
Yeah,
had
I know
actually won a
Wolfman.
bunch of money.
Yeah.
And at that point, he hadn't really taken over running the shows.
Right.
But you know, the people knew his money was kind of around at that
Yep.
point. So you could kind of trick people to almost thinking something was about to happen.
Right.
So I hopefully Pinky remembers this like I do. He went out and bought all the Bret Hart gear, like right down to the letter.
Yeah.
It was perfect gear, right? And he had this big black messy wig on. And he came backwards like Bret Hart used to back up down the ramp, right?
Yeah.
You know? And all of a sudden the Bret Hart music hits, dun 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 dun, and out comes this, you know, it comes a fairly good sized guy walking backwards like this. He's got the jacket with the tassels and everything. It's like people are like,
He sent me a picture the other day.
and they go, and I really, people almost bit for just a second. They went, oh my God, they just spent the money to bring in Bret Hart. And then he turned around and was like, oh God, it's this jerk again.
That's funny. He wants to do Pinky Petunia, like, because Jeff would never let him do, like, you know, like Piper's Pit and all that. And he's like, I got the banner and everything, so I'm going to talk to him.
We did a couple of that.
You did do something.
Yeah, the
Okay.
flower shop.
Yeah. That's all right. So now you work. Now let's, like I said, we don't have a lot of time. I'd love to have you on another time too, so we can do this again.
Sure.
But tell us about your chaotic experience. You were there for a little while, right? A few years.
Yeah, a couple years. That was
Jamie was the owner then.
Jamie was the owner. He just stopped being the owner, didn't he?
I heard that. Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, that was a good experience. I mean, you know, like I told you before, I was basically mostly working with with a lot of their students, not all their students. So I mean, you know, he wrestled Walters on the shows, and Louis Ortiz, and you know,
great workers.
Very, very talented guys. I mean, you know, there's another guy I probably should have mentioned in the went on to a career kind of thing with John. And,
RJ Brewer.
Yeah, but a lot of you know, and he did Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
He did a lot, you know. So, but anyways, you know, I liked working in that environment where I, you know, at that point I had probably been doing it about 15, 16 years. I still had decent amount of athletic ability left in me, none of which I have anymore. But I knew kind of the pacing where the guys should be, and you know, I was like the settle down guy. You know, okay, this is where you need to be. This is where you need to be. This is where you need to be.
You end up helping out a lot of the young kids too along the way.
I like to think so. I mean, you know,
I would imagine.
few of them might think I tortured them, but you know.
Nice. So now you worked for them for a couple of years. Now, did you work for Sheldon before Chaotic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about working with Sheldon?
Sheldon was good, and you know, Sheldon gave me a lot of opportunities because Sheldon was really the first guy I ever wrestled for that kind of catered to more of he had that. He used to run that Matt Marketplace thing, or I believe he helped run it.
Yes.
Okay. And so he was the first guy I ever worked for that was really good at, like, he wanted to market tapes. He wanted, you know, he was really the first guy I ever worked with like that.
And he's bringing some good talent too.
He brought in Doug Williams.
Yeah.
I wrestled him 3 times.
Wow.
And,
He's a hell of a talent.
Yeah. He was really, 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 really good. Sheldon's like, I know you can keep up with him. I'm like, I really, really, really have fooled you.
Right.
But I managed to stick with him pretty well,
Yeah.
you know. And he was Doug's a very talented guy.
Yeah, he is.
You know, there's another guy went on to TNA. You know, frankly, should have been in New York. You know?
Right. Yeah, he also worked for Ring of Honor for a little while too.
Oh yeah. And he was, he was super talented.
Yeah, definitely. He, matter of fact, like you said, he worked for TNA. I think he just left there like a year ago. And he's been there. He was there for a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. Trying to think what else was I wanted. There was something else I wanted to bring up. What was it? Who else did you work for besides? Oh, I know what it was. I'm sorry. You worked for Sheldon one time at Christmas time. Santa Claus came out. That was you and Slick, right? Was it you and
that
you
was
and
me and
Alex?
Alex
You and Alex.
And Santa Claus
Yes.
was Steve Bradley.
Yes.
Yes.
That was a crazy. Now did you beforehand? You obviously knew Steve was there. Obviously, like they didn't try to swerve you.
No,
right.
I don't.
Because I'll tell you real quick, he came over. I was selling my merchandise. So the only time I sold merchandise at Sheldon's show, and Santa came over and he saw a Missy Hyatt book on my table, and he's like, "Ho, ho, ho, what a ho!" I haven't seen her since I don't know if it was Brian Hildebrand's memorial show. So I was done looking at him like I couldn't tell who it was. So when he ripped it off, I popped huge. I couldn't believe it because he had just come back to the area.
Yes,
Did
yes, he
you
had.
ever wrestle,
Yeah.
Steve?
Oh, yeah. Another guy should have, even though it shouldn't have been more obscure, but, he wrestled. I always thought Steve got a raw deal. He was signed to one of the very first developmental contracts, I believe. Okay.
Right.
Bear in mind, Steve wasn't I was friendly with Steve, but it wasn't like we were great friends or anything.
Right.
So I'm going on some rough memories. And he had one of the first developmental contracts, and he was in that developmental system for quite a while, and really never got his shot on TV.
Yep.
And I thought it was kind of unfair because I also figured they like him in that role. Because
he was
if
awesome.
you remember, he was the one who did most of the initial work with Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle, yes.
So they trusted him a lot with that kind of stuff, and I think they just kind of thought, without saying it, that was his position, and he wanted more. And I don't blame him for wanting more because he was a talented guy. He was
Very.
a lot bigger than he actually looked, and he was a very talented guy.
Yeah. I think his first match was in Salem, Mass.
It may have
against Christian.
Actually, his very first matches, if you want to call them that, you mentioned the Hudson Lions Club earlier.
Yeah.
He actually wrestled on the Hudson Lions Lions Club before Jeff Koster started booking it.
Really?
So I will actually tell you a funny story about Steve Bradley. So Jeff had booked the Hudson Lions Club. It was the first time. He actually used to run in the town hall. No, he used to run at it was a Richard's Catering Hall.
Oh, yeah, right. Yep,
right
I
in
know what
Hudson.
that is.
And he thought it was too expensive, and he cut a deal with the Lions Club to go wrestle at the Hudson Lions Club.
Right.
So Steve Bradley shows up at the doorstep one day after they're done setting up the ring and stuff.
Right.
And he goes, "Me and my friends wrestle here." "You do you?" I'm good." "You are?" And Steve Bradley goes, "Yeah, watch." And he annihilates himself, taking a bump on the floor.
Wow.
So he wasn't talking to Jeff. He was talking to a guy named Butcher Hughes.
Oh, Kevin. Yeah.
So he's telling this kid's telling him, "I can wrestle." "You can? Show me what you can do." And he splattered himself all over the floor. So the Butcher goes to Jeff and goes, "You should see this kid. He came in here, told me he knew how to wrestle. He splattered himself all over the floor." And Jeff goes, "Ed, what'd you do?" "I fucked him." And that was where Steve Bradley had his actual, if you want to call that his first professional matches.
wow.
He did. He had actually
Nice.
decent little history with Jeff.
Yep.
So
That's awesome. Actually, when I said that match in Salem, too, I don't know if you happen to know the referee. He's actually a family of mine. I actually had a couple of kids with his cousin, Rich Lannon.
Yep.
You know Rich?
Rich is a good
He
guy.
was a great ref when he was around.
I talk to Rich every once in a while
Good, yeah.
online.
Nice guy.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Very nice guy. Very good, very competent referee, too.
I would love to have him on, but he lives up in Maine. I would absolutely
Yeah,
love
he's
to
gone
have
kind
him
of
on.
radio silent, too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I don't know if he's living off the grid or just said social media ain't for me. And,
Right.
So it's been a while since I heard from him. But,
Nice. Yeah. From you wrestled, like we were saying, from Chaotic, New England Championship Wrestling, Joe Gino. Who else did you wrestle for around here?
I spent a lot of time wrestling for Jeff.
Right.
I mean, Jeff was a guy I spent a big, between Eugenio and then on to Jeff, and then, then I moved on to Sheldon, and then I worked for Jeff quite a bit still between those periods, and not just Jeff, but for Jason Sanderson when he was, and then for Chaotic, and then for the EWA after that as well.
that was you. You and the doctors.
Yeah. Well, not at first. At
It was
first,
just the docs.
that was a guy named Steve Ramsey was involved in
okay.
it financially.
Yep.
Scott King was booking it, and they were running primarily in Maine. And then what happened was Dr. Heresy started running a town, I believe it's Southbridge, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then Steve Ramsey wanted to move to Arizona. So then Jeremy, Dr. Heresy, took it over, and he asked, if I'd want to sign on and help out with the shows. And I said yes, and we did that for a while.
You guys became really good friends too, right?
Still one of the best friends. Dr. Heresy is one of the best friends ever. I remember one night he called me from hospital, and
I thought you were going to say jail.
not him. No. He called me up and said, Mav, I don't know why I ever meet. Wrestling's weird. Nobody uses your real name.
Right.
He goes, Mav, father just died. I don't mean to relate. Well, I guess I do mean to relate a painful story. And I asked him where he was, and I believe the hospital was in, say Brookline, Mass, or New Braintree, Mass, but I might be wrong. I just remember I got off the phone with him. I just said, I got to go. And he wasn't asking me to come down there. I asked him where he was. He said, you don't have to come down here. So,
right down.
So I drove down and, saw
That's
him.
a true friend.
Saw him and met his mother for the first time. Hugged it out, cried a little.
Oh yeah.
It was a rough night, but he's a good guy.
Right.
He really is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Jeremy very well at all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But he's well liked by everyone that I know.
Beyond that, I want to, Rip Morrison. I once remarked one time he got Joe Bruin runs that New England Hall of Fame. He used to do it. He used to do it on people's shows,
right.
I believe. So I once remarked that I inducted him into the New England Wrestling Hall of Fame. And I once remarked, they said, you're going to give a speech. So I made the remark, I said, wrestling is so weird. 1 minute you're beating the crap out of each other, and an hour later you're sleeping on the guy's couch and drinking his beer.
Right.
So
that's all right. I listened to the podcast you were on with Monster Mac, the Mac podcast, and you told the story about a guy that I'm not a big fan of either. CM Punk.
Very talented guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I've told the story before, but the long and short of it was there was a charity show. Bobby Cruz was a ring announcer for Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And Scott, oh God, I'm terrible with last names. I just got on his case for not telling me he was at a show close to my house. We used to call him the Shooter. So he had a nephew that had cancer.
Right.
And he wanted to run a benefit for him. And then, so whoever had the ring backed out on the last minute. I had a ring set up. It shouldn't have been moved,
right.
At all. So he's like, well, can you get it down here? Okay. And the ring didn't set up well. It was,
right.
It was kind of crappy, to be frank with you. But, I heard nothing. Here I am on a charity show giving everything away, and
right.
I hear nothing but complaining. And then Steve Carino, apparently, he was the one who brought that talent in, somehow held him up for a little money. So I was not happy with the situation to begin with. And Dr. Heresy, we're backstage, and he's whistling. Yeah. And, and I don't know him beyond this. CM Punk starts, and I'm in a bad mood already. And CM Punk goes, who the F is whistling? You shut the F up. So I looked at it. I looked at Dr. Heresy. I looked at CM Punk. I just looked and I said, I looked back at Jeremy. I said, keep whistling.
Right.
I said, whistle louder. I'm going to go across the street and get you a megaphone to whistle into. He said, what's your problem? Shut up!
Right.
Whatever, bro. And just apparently he hadn't had any mixed martial art training at that point because he just walked out. Because,
right.
If he'd had the training he had now, I'd probably just kick the crap out of me. But,
I don't know, man. He drops from one punch, so I don't know. Teddy Hart kicked his ass, too, from what I hear.
No, hey. What do I know? Maybe I get lucky.
I'm only bringing it up because, when I catered those shows, Ring about it, he just was a jerk. You'd ask him for a picture, and here he is, he's getting free food all day, because they weren't, wrestlers weren't paying for it, and he was just miserable. All the pictures, you like this. You know what I mean? Just was a miserable guy. Should have just said no.
That seems to be, that's a lot of people have that same story.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on in his life. And frankly, at that point, I didn't care. That was my one interaction with the guy. he backed down from my time's skinny rear end, and as I sit here, 100 pounds heavier.
Right. We only got a couple minutes left, but I just want your opinion on. Yeah, you like any of the new talent out there? Have you seen anyone you like? Or
I've been trying to watch it sometimes.
Yep.
I mean, it's changed enough where I don't like a lot of what I see on TV,
Right.
mainly because of all the acting and skits that I see. I mean,
writers too. I mean, they're
Yeah.
writers now.
I know, and it's perplexing, and I think I'm well within my right to say it's changed, and I don't like the way it's changed.
Right.
It doesn't mean nobody's entitled to like it. Just I mean, who am I? I'm just some schmuck. But Kevin Owens is really good.
Yep.
AJ Styles is, but I mean, he's been around for years.
Right.
I mean, but it always never. I guess it doesn't really surprise me anymore when guys, like Chris Jericho, who's still floating in and out of there, is still, one of the best things on their show.
Yeah. I mean, he really is. Mm-hmm. What about locally?
Locally?
Yeah. I really do believe right now we have a lot of great talent right now in this area.
So I make fun of him and pick on him a lot, but Anthony Green's very talented.
Very. Yeah?
Yeah, okay. That's the one compliment you get for a year.
Once
Anthony.
he puts on some more weight, too, because he's got the size.
He's bulked up quite a bit, actually.
He really is really talented.
He's very talented. He's not wrestling right now. Brandon Locke, very, very good.
He's now into that bodybuilding and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's going to pursue wrestling at all anymore. Right. I guess it goes. I can't really sign off without putting over. I know he stopped wrestling last year, but Brian Fury became the best wrestler in the area.
Yes,
he really did.
Yeah.
And so there was somebody that broke in with Jeff, and it was kind of a rough crowd, and I think it was probably a little rough on him when he was young. Yep. And I'm sorry, Brian, but you became the best wrestler in the area for quite a long time.
Awesome talent, and you're right. He's been trained. What he's doing at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy,
they're in good hands.
Unbelievable.
They're in good hands.
And I mean, some of the other talent. We only got a minute left, but like Josh Briggs, a kid. Dijak just got signed.
Dijak, I've seen. I'm a big fan.
There's, like I said, if I leave anybody out, I don't mean to. Believe me.
I love Malonis.
Yep,
I love Brian Malonis. Is great.
Like I said, Josh Briggs, Flip Gordon. Have you seen Flip?
Boy.
I mean,
he's all over the place. He's very
innovative,
very athletic,
kid.
very talented.
Yeah.
I worry about him killing himself. I really do.
And we talked about down that area with Joe. How do you say his name?
Eugenio.
Yep. The Kingdom. That's
Yep.
what Taven. Vinny Marsaglia.
TK is very talented.
They are. I mean, and creative with Vinny.
Yeah.
With that ink sanity and the horror. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We have some great talent. But would you be interested in coming on again down the line?
Absolutely. Yes.
Mav, thank you very much for coming
problem.
on. Guys, that's it. We're out. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.